Welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm Director of Product Marketing for our cloud providers in VMware. And today I'm joined by Sangeeta and Galana. Welcome, folks. Let's start with you, Sangeeta. Why don't you introduce yourself to those? You've already been on Feature Fridays, haven't you, actually?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks, Guy. Yes, I'm Sangeeta. I work in the cloud service provider team at VMware. My focus is basically bringing app modernization and data services to the cloud provider portfolio.
Excellent. That's what we're going to talk about today. And Galina, welcome.
Thank you, Guy. My name is Galina, and I'm a Senior Technical Product Manager at VMware. Together with Sangeeta, I will present the Data Solutions Extension 1.2 to you, and we'll guide you through the latest features in this release.
Okay. So Data Service Extension 1.2, the formal name is VMware Cloud Director Data Solutions Extension 1.2, I think.
So yeah, the full name goes by Data Solution Extension for VMware Cloud Director. So basically,
there you go.
Because it's an extension off of VCD. So that's how it's a long name, but yeah, it does a pretty good job.
But the cool thing is it's another free solution, zero cost to a cloud provider to deliver more services to their tenants. And this time, obviously, focusing on data services like databases and things. So let's go straight into it, Sangeeta. Just kind of remind us a little bit about what the Data Solution Extension is all about, and then we'll look at the updates.
Perfect. Right. Yes, perfect. So, Galina and I will walk you through basically what we have, what's new with Data Solution Extension on VCD. But before we get to that, the customer disclaimer, pretty much what we have, what entails, and what we promise or not promise. So I'll just give a brief overview of what the Cloud Director extension for data services does. It's in a nutshell, it's a very simplistic tenant-facing self-service user interface that offers lifecycle management for a number of data solutions. It's pretty easy to use. It gives a single view across multiple instances and with URLs to individual instances for a specific service management. So these services or data solutions can be deployed in the cloud providers, VCD managed VMware vSphere, or even on tons of Kubernetes, great for an on-premise infrastructure. So I'll just briefly walk through what we have now. So we started off with introducing VMware RabbitMQ, essentially a message broker as a service. So it's a very fast, dependable enterprise message broker. It provides very reliable communication between servers, applications, devices. We then introduced SQL, and so it's basically PostgreSQL and MySQL. It's the traditional RDBMS, relational database service. It provides very cost-efficient and flexible deployment and on-demand and at certain scale, I'd say. Going forward, and the next thing that we introduced right now, which we'll talk in detail, is MongoDB 1.2 with 1.2 that basically brings together NoSQL as a service. So there's VMware SQL and then now NoSQL with MongoDB. That is different in the sense that it's a document database. It's very different from how relational databases work. It has a more scaled out architecture. Its schema scales up, scales down depending on the demand. So it has a lot of bells and whistles, let's say. Couple of other pieces that I want to touch upon is other in-house data solutions that we have within VMware would be, say, Greenplum. So basically a data warehouse or a parallel processing database, basically. So Greenplum is based off of open source Postgres. So it enables data warehousing, aggregation, artificial intelligence and machine learning, capturing of those loads. And it's extreme query speed, basically.
Yeah.
And the other in-house solution is Gemfire. It's I'd say it's an in-memory It supports in-memory data grid for low latency applications. So it scales data services on demand to support high performance, real-time applications with ultra high speed. And yeah, that's because it supports in-memory data and computer grid. So in a nutshell, this is what we have and we plan to bring in. Soon to come is also Kafka to complete our portfolio of, I'd say, the building blocks to support application AI and ML applications. Out of all of those, we were missing Kafka, which is a real-time data streaming platform. So we do plan to bring in Kafka soon, both the Apache Kafka as well as an enterprise on-premise version. Yes.
We've really kind of got the whole thing covered here. I mean, I'm looking at this now, and I'm seeing that kind of big data new functionality we have with MongoDB. I'm seeing NVIDIA with the vGPU capability we have in VCD, and optionally, big data platforms or for speed in memory grids, and eventually Kafka and one of the kind of upcoming releases, real-time data streaming. I mean, this like collectively makes a really decent platform to offer advanced data services on.
Indeed. So that's the goal for providers to have the entire portfolio, basically all of the building blocks that they require to capture more modern workloads.
Yeah. And I guess the difference here with the Data Solutions extension is that previously you could always have deployed an instance of Postgres, SQL, whatever you wanted from the VMware Cloud Marketplace, the old Bitnami catalog, and you could have just given someone access to deploy that and manage that themselves. But the big difference with DSE is it brings in some of the lifecycle components and versioning, which is like where the service provider can then add their kind of managed services and offer their capability on top as a service.
Exactly. So it takes away a lot of the overhead that tenants have to manage on their own if they have to just pull it from Bitnami application catalog. It gives more control to the providers as to which ones they want to offer and probably monetize. So all of that overhead is taken away by Data Solution Extension. It's fully integrated with VCD. So they pretty much have a self-service model.
Excellent.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this is where I want to go a little deep, I'd say double down on what we have with Data Solution Extension 1.2. We just made it generally available a couple of weeks back. And with that, we brought in support for MongoDB. So there are two flavors with MongoDB. One is the Community Edition, and the other one is the Enterprise Advanced Edition. Enterprise Advanced is basically for large data centers, or even for basically a licensed version for on-premise deployments. To give a little more color on what MongoDB is, it's a document database that uses a very flexible schema to store data. It's classified as NoSQL, unlike the SQL ones, which are very table-oriented. So each record in a MongoDB database is a document that's described in a BSON. It's basically a binary representation of data. So applications can then retrieve this information in a JSON format. The reason, why providers could, probably choose this to offer is it's a hugely proven stack. MongoDB is a hugely popular choice with developers who want to develop scalable applications that have very evolving data schemas. Say they have tenants that want to support rapid iterative development. They want to enable collaboration on large data sets. They want to scale to high levels of read and write traffic. So basically, if they want to store, manage, search data in text, geospatial or time series distributions, all of that is supported by MongoDB. In specific, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. So this is lots of unstructured data then, basically. So you could use this if you've got customers who have got, I know the example springs to mind of, the police now, they all wear cams on their cameras on their bodies, right? So huge amounts of data need to be stored in something like this because it's unstructured, and then obviously bringing that back when it's needed, and the applications that can use that would then be able to use this type of data structure for retrieving unstructured data.
That's where MongoDB very aptly fits in, because it's not very tabular. It's just a document. It's just a JSON. So it very well fits in with unstructured data, which is what I guess today's market really needs. And for service providers to tap into that market, this is a perfect opportunity. I'd say especially for those that are bound by data sovereignty as well. So they don't really need to go to, say, other hyperscalers for services and then get bound with the US Cloud Act. This is an on-premise version. It all stays within their data center. None of the data just goes outside the boundaries. So that works very well with them. So
it's a good point, actually. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if you go and use a hyperscaler instance of MongoDB or any unstructured database, you're going to have potentially like tie into their features and functions, which you would expect, but you're also going to have things like egress charges. And from an innovation perspective, this is fantastic because, this is now with the complete portfolio that we've just discussed and things like Content Hub and the marketplace applications, you've really got a lot of innovation here that I think, presents a decent option to a customer to not go to a hyperscaler and use a local provider.
Exactly. The goal over here, be it with Content Hub, Data Solutions, our goal is to enable providers to make it easy to capture as many developer-ready workloads as possible. So it's not that we can just say, hey, we have VCD, just go out to some other vendor or hyperscaler, get your services. That's generally not a well-proven stack. The stack is to offer them everything either out of the box or maybe just an extension. So it takes away all that overhead, and they can concentrate on their job and not worry about the backend infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a little deep into what are the advantages for just MongoDB in general. So I'll just quote a Gartner study specifically on data analytics and predictions. So it says that 80% of organizations that seek to scale digital business will likely fail because they did not take a modern approach to their analytics and governance needs. What that basically means, they're still on, they're still on traditional relational databases, which probably just have a lift and shift model. They're not as scalable. This is where they're probably likely to fail. So because legacy systems are often not built in the assumption that the data is not stored in a relational database, they just limit the flexibility. This is where MongoDB will come in. It'll expand the horizon. You can scale in, scale out depending on how your needs are. Data residency laws, just like I mentioned, it's pretty much compliant. So the providers who have such laws that they require the nation's citizens' data has to be collected and stored within the boundaries of the same country, that fits perfectly for them. No worries at all. Coming to business agility, it's faster because the document data model, which MongoDB follows, is a much more natural way compared to the tabular model. So it unifies data in a single query, I'd say. So you basically end up writing less code, and then users get better performance when they use their application. So that way it increases agility, time to market, etc. And scalability, like I mentioned, it auto scales up and down based on the traffic or read and write. So
that's pretty cool in terms of the consumption models that we have as well. So if you've got a database that can scale up and down, you only pay for what you use in the cloud provider world with VMware. So this actually, really features nicely in that respect.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so we'll dive deep into specifically, after this slide, I guess, specifically what 1.2 brings in. I'll just want to give an idea to everyone who's watching this is just don't take our word. There is a lot of research that goes into this, and then the forecast pretty much has been that enterprises or providers will probably move maybe double, I guess. Yeah, it's double. The adoption will probably double up until 2026. So you can see that there is a trend to move from a more legacy and something that's hard coded, that is not as flexible, to something that can handle the flexible amount of data or schema that you need. So there is a lot of growth opportunity in here, which is definitely what providers would want to tap into. All right, I'll pass it on to Galina, so she'll help us go deep into some of the technical nuances into what Data Solution Extension 1.2 specifically brings in.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sangeeta.
I will specifically focus on the new features of Data Solutions Extension 1.2. In this release, we have a new service, which is MongoDB, and it comes in two editions, Community and Enterprise. MongoDB is a NoSQL database and is largely used for semi-structured and unstructured data, and is very popular with AI and ML apps. With this release, providers and their tenants can use MongoDB the same way as the previous data services. They can create, delete, and modify MongoDB instances. In this release, we also provide opportunity for tenants to automatically upgrade the Data Solutions operator, which is responsible for the provisioning of the data services in a selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. Also, another important aspect of this new release is that we provide API support for the main Data Solutions extension operations, which are creating a data service instance, updating and deleting a database service. We have an API guide that providers can use so that they can automate their Data Solutions extension operations. And there is a multi-language support in this release, which is the same as the one available in VMware Cloud Director. Next slide, please. So why did we choose MongoDB? Because we have a solid set of SQL database services. We provide support for PostgreSQL and MySQL database services, and now we decided to expand our portfolio of data services with a NoSQL database, which is MongoDB. There are many differences between those two database types. The main are that the SQL database services, they are used for specific types of data. The data is kept in a specific format. Tables are used. There are relations between the tables, and the data is usually in strict format and is not flexible. The data schema of those services is not flexible, unlike the NoSQL databases where the data schema is more flexible. It can contain any type of data. Another key aspect of SQL databases is that they are ACID compliant, which means that they meet certain conditions, and for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, which prove that the data that is saved in them is reliable. So this is a very important aspect of SQL databases, that they are ACID compliant. Not all NoSQL databases are ACID compliant, but MongoDB is ACID compliant, so providers can have that in mind. The NoSQL databases, as I said, they keep large sets of data, mainly unstructured or semi-structured data. They are flexible, they are easy to scale, unlike SQL databases, and they are probably the most popular choice for AI and ML applications. Next slide, please. Before demonstrating the new features of Data Solutions Extension 1.2, I will briefly touch upon the architecture of Data Solutions Extension 1.2. Data Solutions Extension 1.2 is installed as a plugin for VMware Cloud Director, and for its installation, the provider administrator needs to specify the Cloud Director instance URL, the certificate that will be used for the connection to the VMware Cloud Director instance, also the credentials of the VCD administrator. And after the installation completes, during the installation of Data Solutions Extension, there are a few important things that happen. One is that there are runtime defined entities, which are VMware Cloud Director runtime defined entities. These entities are created specifically for Data Solutions Extension. VMware Cloud Director runtime defined entities are objects that are used for the extensions of VMware Cloud Director, and they are used instead of a local database. They keep the states of the instances that are created in Data Solutions Extension, and they also keep reference to external resources. So this is important aspect of the Data Solutions Extension architecture. Not all VMware Cloud Director extensions have runtime defined entities created for them, but Data Solutions Extension and Container Service Extension have such entities created for them. And after the installation completes, the provider administrator needs to configure the container registries, which keep the images of the data services that will be deployed in a selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. Data Solutions Extension works hand in hand with Container Service Extension. Container Service Extension must be also deployed, and so that the tenants can deploy a service in a Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. After the provider administrator provides the details of the container registries that keep the images of the data services, then the provider administrator can publish those services to selected tenant organizations. The provider basically can select which data services to publish to which tenant organizations. There is an important part of the Data Solutions Extension architecture is the Data Solutions Operator, which basically pulls the images of the services and installs them in a selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. Each image has Kubernetes operator, which is installed in the selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. On top of that, we also provide monitoring services. Tenants can use Grafana and Prometheus to keep track of the health and the performance of their data services. Both tools are open source, and they must be installed in a selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. Next slide, please.
Galina, just on that, so on the Grafana and Prometheus side, is that Data Solutions Operator going to automatically look for a Grafana instance, or is that something that has to be done manually?
Both tools are installed separately in a selected Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster, but Data Solutions Extension gets this information automatically. And when you select a data service, you will see that there is an option available for opening the information in Grafana, in the Grafana portal. So tenants can, without much effort, can see the status of their services and monitor their performance straight from the Data Solutions Extension UI.
Awesome.
these are the needed requirements for Data Solutions Extension 1.2. Data Solutions Extension works with VMware Cloud Director 10.4 or later, and with Container Service Extension 4.0 or later. There are specific versions of the Kubernetes operators for the different services that work with Data Solutions Extension 1.2. Those are listed on this slide. So these services, these operators are, as I said, they are pulled from the container registries, and the Data Solutions Extension Kubernetes operator installs them in the chosen Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. So I will share the demo that I have prepared. Started from the beginning. So here I will present the new features from a provider and tenant point of view. I will start with the provider administrator and the things that this persona can do after Data Solutions Extension 1.2 is installed. So after Data Solutions Extension 1.2 is installed, the provider administrator must resolve the artifacts for the MongoDB data services for the MongoDB Community and Enterprise Edition. And for that, after the installation completes, he'll see this particular window, and the provider must go to those registries, to the MongoDB repositories, and update them, so that the Data Solutions operator can pull those images from the respective repositories. So this is an important step after Data Solutions Extension 1.2 is installed. The MongoDB repositories must be updated. Otherwise, the provider administrator won't be able to publish those services to the selected tenant organization. So for the update of the repositories, the provider administrator must specify the chart repository and chart name and version. And after those repositories are updated, for both data services, and the provider administrator can then publish those services. And the process is pretty straightforward. The provider administrator must select the data service that they want to publish, and just go through a quick wizard, select the tenant organizations for which these services will be available. And after that, these services will be available when a tenant user or tenant administrator logs in VCD and launches Data Solutions Extension. So another new thing for the provider administrator in Data Solutions Extension 1.2 is that there are new templates for MongoDB Community and Enterprise Edition. These templates are predefined, and they are related to the requirements related with the requirements from the MongoDB. And basically the templates are predefined. They specify the parameters which the service will use to be deployed. So here we have the requirements for the different templates. We have different memory, CPU, and storage parameters for the different templates. And the templates are different for MongoDB Community and MongoDB Enterprise. MongoDB Community, MongoDB Enterprise Edition has all the operations that the MongoDB Community has, but it also, on top of that, it provides Ops Manager, MongoDB Ops Manager, which helps providers, helps tenants administer their MongoDB data services. And they can also use this ops manager to perform backup and restore of their data services, which is very useful.
Mm-hmm.
And now I will demonstrate the new things from a tenant point of view. Tenants who have the needed rights can upgrade, can set the Data Solutions Kubernetes operator to be automatically upgraded, which is useful because they won't need to do this manually to check for if there is a new version and upgrade it. As I said, the MongoDB Enterprise Edition has Ops Manager, which helps tenants to further manage their MongoDB Enterprise instances. This Ops Manager helps tenants to administer their data services. It provides information on the health and performance of their MongoDB enterprise services. It also helps them set alerts for a specific event, and also, as I said, to perform backup and restore. The MongoDB Ops Manager is installed separately, and to be attached in Data Solutions Extension 1.2. The tenant administrator must provide the details of this MongoDB Ops Manager. The details are the URL of the MongoDB Ops Manager, the organization ID, and public and private key, and the certificates that will be needed for the connection to the MongoDB Ops Manager. This is a very important step so that the tenants can use the MongoDB Enterprise services. If this MongoDB Ops Manager is not attached, the tenants cannot be able to create MongoDB Enterprise services.
Yeah.
And after this Ops Manager is configured, is attached to Data Solutions Extension 1.2, then tenants can start creating instances from the MongoDB Enterprise service. And here we demonstrate how a MongoDB Enterprise service can be created. For that, we need to specify a name for the service, to specify where the service will be deployed, in which specific Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster. We need to have a Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster created, otherwise we won't be able to deploy the service. And we need to provide the credentials of the database administrator, and then select the template that will basically specify the parameters of the deployment.
Galina,
but yes,
just a quick question on these templates. Are they we've got standard, X large, minimal. Are providers able to curate their own templates?
So the provider administrator selects which templates to be visible to their tenants. There is an option in the provider portal where providers can set as featured only selected templates. And after that, these templates will be available to tenants. But the tenants, they can customize these templates in the YAML file of the service.
Okay, so this provider.
Yeah,
sorry, go on, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add just one point. So if the question is specifically to have custom sizing of these templates, that's one item on the roadmap, which we will be supporting custom templates, basically where they could typically choose the CPU, memory, RAM for each of the templates. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say
they're predefined.
Yeah, it might not fit exactly what I want to offer as a partner to a customer, and I might want to call it something else like MongoDB Platinum or whatever it might be. Yeah.
If it's a specific use case, yes, we do plan to support that in future.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So after these templates are after a template is selected, this specific template needs to be further configured. We have here a replica set standard selected, and for that particular template, we need to specify the host names of the replica nodes. And after we specify them, we can further edit the service manifest, and by doing it, we specify how this service will be deployed in the Tanzu Kubernetes Grid cluster. So we can use this editor to further customize our data service. And after the service is created and up and running, we'll see the status running next to the service, which indicates that the service is up and running. Here, every service has information about the service. For MongoDB, we can also download the certificates of that will be needed for the connection to the service. I will demonstrate this too. To connect to the database cluster, we will need the information of all host names of the replica nodes in the cluster. And here we demonstrate how to connect to such database cluster. We use MongoDB Compass, which is a client that can connect to a database cluster, and we specify the host names of the replica nodes that comprise the cluster. Also, we need to provide the administrator the credentials of the database administrator, and also to provide the certificate that is needed for us to connect to that database cluster. After that, we can add, update, delete data, and manage it in any possible way from this database MongoDB client. As I previously said, the Ops Manager is the MongoDB Ops Manager is very useful for managing the deployed MongoDB Enterprise services. You can see what their status is. You can see different metrics that are related to the performance and state of the deployed service. You can see if there is any if there are any peaks or lows related to the usage of the data service, and also set alerts to be notified if something wrong happens with the service. Another useful option that tenants can use is the backup and restore from this MongoDB Ops Manager, which is very helpful for managing databases, because as we all know, replication of data backup and restore is very crucial for any database. So in addition to MongoDB Ops Manager, we also provide for all data services that Data Solutions extension supports Grafana dashboards, which include many different metrics, and Grafana is very useful for those services so that you'll be able to monitor the state of your services and check if there are any issues with those services.
That's really awesome. I love the Grafana boards and the Ops Manager, and just kind of bringing that all together. Obviously, there's, I guess, for the developers and stuff like that, the dashboard is going to be really important, from that DevOps perspective. But also, a provider could offer the kind of the management packs for ARIA to complement this, to give an overall view as well. So there's the management pack for MongoDB, which is also something they could consider using and deploying. But wow, what a comprehensive solution, man. I mean, we've seen a complete deep dive into that. So that's really, really cool functionality. And I'm kind of blown away by how much actually 1.2's come along, especially including like things like the management console and stuff in there, which is really nice. And the Kubernetes operators, right? Because that's like an extra step that you would have to do manually normally. And that's really cool to see that all combined into one solution. So brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. And so that's 1.2. It was out in end of July. We're now in August. So Sangeeta, what's the kind of time frame for? Is it going to be a 1.3? You know, what's the kind of priorities from your perspective? Obviously, no commitments, but what are the priorities?
The priorities are basically to expand the portfolio. Like I was talking, we already have message broker service, we have SQL, NoSQL. So in that roadmap, we probably want to bring in event streaming with Kafka, and we want to bring in data warehousing with Greenplum. Also to add it, we probably will have Harbor as a plugin as well. So nice. Those kind of are the building blocks we want to give to complete our DevSecOps portfolio, so providers can take advantage of it. That's kind of how our maybe 12 months probably would look like. But that's what we want to offer. And
customized templates.
Yes.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And Sangeeta, thanks for walking through the overview of it. And Galina, thank you very much for a comprehensive demo walkthrough as well. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us over. Thank you.
Bye.